Yo everyone, welcome back. This one's gonna be a tutorial, what is this, 3.5, which is an extension of 3, which is loops. And in this one I'll be talking about continue and break and where you should be using them. So pretty much what continue means is continue to the next step of the loop, and break means exit the loop, or any parent loops. So we'll go through some examples of how to use them, and I'll give you some actual practices or actual implementations of using them in scenarios. So here, I'm just gonna make a new script. I'm just gonna say for I equals 1 to 20 do. So this is gonna start from 1. So I is equal to 1. That's gonna count up to 20, and by default, it'll do it every 1 increment. So if I try run that, it should do 1 to 20. Now let's say I want to continue and skip I is equal to 5. So this means if I is equal to 5, I want to continue. That means just skip over this loop and don't print it. So if I do that, this pretty much says if I is 5, continue from this point. That means skip all the code below it and go to the next iteration of the loop. So now if I run this, we can count 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no 5. So we skipped number 5. Now let's say if I is equal to 12, we want to break the loop. This means once I is equal to 12, we want to exit this loop. So if I run that, we're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And once it hits 12, we're going to break the loop so it stops completely. Now another thing to note is, let's say we want to do this 5 times, this counting up to 20. If I try to run this, you'll see it still runs it 5 times, but it will only break the I is equal to 12 here. So actually, if I just make that an underscore. So you can see it's doing up to 11, but once it hits 12, it will break out the current loop, and it will keep going with these ones. Now this isn't just for for loops, you can do this in while loops. So let's do the same thing, but in a while loop. While counter is more than 20, do print counter. And then we want to increment counter by 1. So if I try that, we should count up to 20. Yep. Now let's say if counter counter is equal to 5, then we want to continue to the next iteration of the loop. This pretty much just says skip everything below it, go straight back to this while condition. So the problem with this is, since we're continuing here, it's going to keep the same iteration of the loop. And since it's still 5, we didn't increment it at all, it's going to time out, which is what is happening here. So if I try stop this, hopefully I can. Doesn't look like I'll be able to. Let's hit F5. So you can see that because I didn't think of the logic of the loop, we crashed it, because we continued over the incrementer, which is supposed to escape us from the print statement. But yeah, that's dead now. Alright, now we're back. I've got the code back. I had to rewrite it because Studio crashed and just wouldn't work. So what we have to do instead of what we did, where we continue here, what I need to do is say if counter does not equal to 5, I want to print that. So that way it will skip 5, but it will still keep incrementing. So you can see that if you implement it a different way, you'll have to consider the logic of the loop. So here we skip 5, but it still increments up to 20 or smaller. Still increments up to, until it's smaller or larger than 20. Yeah, increments up till it's larger than 20, because that condition becomes false and the while loop stops. So this also works for repeat loops. So local counter equals 0, repeat until counter is larger than 20. We want to do counter plus equals 1. If counter does not equal to 5, then we want to print counter. There we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we skip 5. Now if I put continue or break, so actually if I put break it, if counter is 5, let's put that there. So if counter is 5 and we break, that should exit the repeat loop. And we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Since it's 5, it breaks and it does not continue. And then we can print finished loop. and we'll have a print start loop. And there we go. We start our loop, we count up to 5, and then we break, so we finish the loop. And this can be used in your code. So hopefully that's something you've learned, and it is a very useful keyword, and I have used it in so many projects, it's not funny. So what I'll do now is pull up the GitHub for the RPG series, and we're going to have a look for breaks and continues. So if I go to SRC here, and let's say I go to replicated storage, I know that there is under replicated data here, I use continue and break. So if I have a look, we use break here. So this is saying remove first category. So I'm going to try find the first replicated data that has a specific category. If I find one, I'm going to remove it from the replicated data, but I'm also going to break so it doesn't actually remove everything else or all the other category replications. And then also I have a removal which does not use break because I want to remove everything. And here we use continue, so if not, check data updated. So this is just saying if not, the data has updated. We're just going to continue, and we're just going to skip this data, so we don't actually need to send it to the player to let them know that it's been updated. Also here, we have return. So this return in this event here actually says don't continue the code anymore below it. So don't run this if this condition is true. So if not debounce force update the player 2 seconds. So that means if the player has not called this within 2 seconds of the last actual call, we just want to return. Oh, sorry, we don't want to return. So if they have called it in the last 2 seconds, we just want to return, and we don't want to update the player. That should prevent data spam and crashing the server. Here we've got repeat task.wait. We can use waits and repeats. And yeah, we can actually break out of this if we wanted to, but I opted for this until condition. So you can see I've got one sample there. If I go back to replicated storage, module, services, I believe in this outfit applier, I also have it. Let's see. Does not look like I do. Oh no, here we go. So here we have a loop. We've got a character data array. So I try get this option data. If there is no option data, we're going to make a warn for it, and we're going to continue. So that means skip this data index and accessory number, and just go to the next one. And then every statement here, there's a warn and a continue. So pretty much, if any of these conditions pass and this code in here runs, it will continue to the next iteration of the loop. And there we go. And then I have a print down here that says success. So no continues occurred. So there's some samples there. I do use the continue and break throughout this code sample here, and I use it in all my other projects, which you should see if you like scroll through here, for example. You'll find more of them. Maybe not in this one, but definitely in the other ones. Data reconcile, I definitely should have that. If I have a look, we have return. No, I opted for something else. Okay, so we don't actually. I think I used break in this one. No, I just return it. So, you can also return out of loops. So if it's inside a function or any script or anything, when you call return, that pretty much just says exit all the loops up to where the function is and just return this value or these values. So if I look at reconcile save data, we have. Oh, that's actually called elsewhere. So that would be called in the data thing. But from this reconcile save data, I would be given a bool value, which is this false or this true or this false. And I would be given a message or nil. So it's message or nil because this return false also gives a message back. But this return true doesn't give a message. So the message is optional. But it's obvious now that if not success, then won the message. But yeah, that's just some of the logic. You can see how I use return to exit the loop, and yeah, you can experiment with it, just play around with it, and put in your code, and it can definitely make code a lot neater, especially when you look at what I did with the what was it? The replicated data? Yeah, so like, I just break out of it there and that's it. It just breaks out of this loop here and continues below it, which it just returns back to where the function was called. So, hopefully you learn a little bit there. And it is important, so keep in your mind when you script. And yeah, I'll see you in the next tutorial.